I used to believe our marriage was the kind people envied. Not flashy. Not dramatic. Just solid. Predictable in the way grown-up love is supposed to be. Mortgage paid on time. 2 kids who slept through most nights. A husband who woke before sunrise and kissed my temple before work like clockwork. For years, that routine felt safe. Now I realize it was just quiet enough to hide what he was doing. The morning everything began looked painfully ordinary. My alarm went off at 5:30, but Ryan was already out of bed. He always was. The coffee machine hummed downstairs, the same soft mechanical sound that had started our days for nearly a decade. I lay there for a moment staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself to move. Another day. Another schedule. Another performance of being a wife who didn't feel lonely inside her own house. When I finally walked into the kitchen, he was at the stove flipping pancakes in his usual weekend dad way, even though it was Wednesday. Lily sat at the counter in mismatched pajamas coloring something aggressively pink. Jack was dragging his stuffed dinosaur across the tile like it was a wounded soldier. "Morning," Ryan said without turning. "Coffee's fresh." I murmured thanks and poured a cup. He glanced over his shoulder, smiling the same steady smile that used to make me feel chosen. It didn't reach me anymore. Lily launched into a story about a dream involving a flying horse detective. Ryan played along instantly, serious voice, full attention. Jack toddled into his legs and hugged them like he'd been gone for months instead of hours. I watched them from across the counter. He looked like the perfect father. Patient. Gentle. Present. And somehow, lately, never really present with me. He set a plate in front of me. "You've got that budget meeting today, right?" "Yeah," I said, already scrolling emails. "It's going to be insane." He nodded. "Want me to do daycare drop-off?" "I've got it." We spoke in logistics now. Schedules. Groceries. Bills. Kid pickups. Our conversations had shrunk to the size of shared responsibility. He leaned in slightly when he passed me the syrup. For a split second, I knew he expected a kiss. I turned toward the coffee pot instead. The moment slid by, small and silent. He pretended not to notice. So did I. That was how our marriage worked now, 2 people gently avoiding the empty space between them. By 7:15 the house exploded into the usual morning chaos. Shoes missing. Backpacks zipped. Lily insisting her glitter headband was emotionally necessary. Jack refusing socks like they were a human rights violation. Ryan handled it all with calm efficiency. He always had. That steadiness was what made me trust him once. Trust him with my future. My body. My life. I didn't know yet that he'd already handed all of that to someone else. Before he left, he paused at the door. "You might be late tonight?" "Probably," I said. "Quarter end." He nodded slowly. "You've been working a lot." There was something careful in his voice. Not accusation. Not quite concern. Just distance noticing distance. "Yeah," I said lightly. "You know how it is." He watched me for half a second too long. Then he smiled, the practiced, reassuring kind. "Of course." The door closed behind him. I remember standing there with my coffee, listening to his car start in the driveway. Watching through the window as he backed out with the same measured precision he did everything else. Reliable husband. Reliable father. Reliable life. If someone had told me that morning that within weeks I'd be planning the systematic destruction of that life, his life, I would have laughed. At that point, I still thought the worst thing in our marriage was distance. I had no idea distance was just the first symptom. The truth arrived 3 nights later. And it came from someone who wasn't supposed to speak. The nanny started avoiding my eyes on Thursday. At first it was subtle. Isabella had always been soft-spoken, almost invisible in the rhythm of our home, folding laundry, packing lunches, coaxing Jack into shoes with patient Spanish murmurs. She'd been with us 2 years, long enough that the kids trusted her without hesitation and I trusted her without question. That morning, though, she flinched when I walked into the kitchen. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yes, Mrs. Cooper," she said too quickly. She dropped her gaze to the counter and kept wiping the same spot long after it was clean. I remember thinking she looked guilty, like Lily did when she'd sneak cookies before dinner. I almost laughed. If only that had been it. The day passed in the usual blur: meetings, spreadsheets, a dozen tiny crises that come with managing other people's money. By the time I picked up the kids and drove home, my brain felt like static. All I wanted was dinner, pajamas, and silence. Ryan texted around 6. "Running late. Don't wait up." No heart. No emoji. Just efficient. It had become normal enough that I barely reacted. Still, a flicker of irritation ran through me. Late nights were supposed to be my thing lately, the overworked finance wife, the one drowning in deadlines. Somehow he'd started matching me hour for hour. I pushed the thought aside. Marriage had seasons. Everyone said that. After the kids were in bed, I came downstairs and found Isabella still in the kitchen. She should have been off an hour ago. Instead, she stood near the island, hands clasped so tight her knuckles were white. "Isabella?" I said. "You can go home." She swallowed. "Mrs. Cooper, can we talk?" Something in her voice made my stomach tighten. "Sure," I said slowly. "What's wrong?" She glanced toward the hallway, the bedrooms, like the walls might hear. "Maybe we sit?" We moved to the small breakfast table. She perched on the edge of the chair, back rigid, eyes shining with unshed tears. A cold thread of unease slid through me. "Did something happen with the kids?" I asked. "No," she whispered. "They're fine." "Then what?" She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. "I don't want to lie to you anymore." My chest went still. Lie about what? Her gaze dropped to her hands. "The man." Every muscle in my body locked. "What man?" Her voice was barely sound. "The one who comes when you're at work." For a second, I honestly didn't understand the words. They hung in the air, meaningless syllables. Then meaning hit. Hard. I laughed once, sharp. "What are you talking about?" She flinched. "I'm sorry." "No," I said, the word coming out flat. "You're confused." She shook her head quickly, tears spilling now. "He comes late morning. Sometimes afternoon. Mr. Cooper lets him in." The room tilted. I heard my own voice from far away. "Ryan?" She nodded. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. For the misunderstanding. For anything that would reassemble reality. Nothing came. "How long?" I asked. "Since February," she whispered. "February. 8 months." My brain tried to reject it. Ryan didn't cheat. Ryan didn't even flirt. Ryan was the dependable one. The safe one. The man who made pancakes at 6 a.m. and remembered pediatric appointments without reminders. "You're wrong," I said, but the conviction was gone. She shook harder. "They use the bedroom." A hot, nauseating wave rushed up my throat. "Our bedroom?" She nodded again. I saw it instantly: the bed, the sheets I washed, the framed wedding photo on the dresser. Them walking past Lily's drawings taped to the fridge. Past Jack's toys scattered in the hall. Into my space. My mouth went dry. "You've seen them?" "Yes." "Together?" "Yes." Silence crushed the room. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, voice hollow. She covered her face. He said if I told, I lose job. He said you would believe him. Not me. Of course I would have, I thought numbly. Of course I would have believed my husband. Because until this moment, he had never given me a reason not to. I leaned back in the chair slowly, like gravity had doubled. Who is she? I asked. Isabella blinked. She? The woman he's cheating with, I said, each word sharp. Her confusion was instant. Mrs. Cooper, she whispered, horrified. No. The world stopped. He is with, woman from work, she said carefully. Tall. Dark hair. Comes here. My heart slammed once. Twice. I saw flashes, his late nights, the growing distance, the way he'd stopped reaching for me in bed, the way I'd told myself it was stress. Not stress. Strategy. Does she have a name? I asked. Isabella hesitated. Then nodded once. Yes. I gripped the edge of the table. What is it? She whispered it. And my entire marriage shattered in one sound. She said the name like it might explode between us. Craig. For a moment, nothing happened. No scream. No tears. No dramatic collapse like you see in movies when a wife learns her husband is sleeping with someone else. Just silence. Because my brain couldn't fit the word into reality. Craig, who? I asked, the syllables scraping my throat. Isabella blinked, confused. The man. He say his name when he come. Craig. My lungs emptied slowly. Not a woman. A man. I stared at her, waiting for the rest of the sentence, the correction, the clarification, the you misunderstand. None came. Ryan wasn't cheating with a woman. Ryan was cheating with a man. The kitchen felt suddenly too small, airless. I pressed my palms flat to the table to keep them from shaking. Describe him, I said. She swallowed. Mid-30s maybe. Tall. Nice clothes. Always confident. He act like he belongs. A picture flashed instantly in my mind. A face from somewhere I couldn't place yet. Someone I'd seen near Ryan before. At work events? Company parties? My pulse started climbing. How often? I asked. At first, maybe once a month, she said. Then more. Now, sometimes twice a week. Twice a week. While I was balancing budgets and daycare schedules and pretending our marriage was just going through a dry spell, my husband was bringing a man into our home. Into my bed. I tasted metal. They're intimate? I forced out. Her eyes filled again. She nodded. The word intimate felt grotesque, too polite for what she meant. I closed my eyes for a second. Ryan. My husband. The man who barely touched me anymore. Touching someone else constantly. A memory surfaced without permission, 6 months ago, me reaching for him in bed, him murmuring he was tired, rolling away. I'd told myself it was stress. Work. Age. Normal marriage ebb. God, I'd even Googled how to reignite intimacy after 10 years like the problem was me. A sound escaped my throat, half laugh, half choke. Isabella leaned forward. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I shook my head slowly. You're not the one who did this. My voice sounded strange. Flat. Detached. Like someone narrating a stranger's life. Does anyone else know? I asked. No. He always come when you gone. Kids at daycare or school. He leave before you home. Of course he did. Methodical. Controlled. Risk managed. Ryan approached everything like a project plan, even adultery. Does he stay long? 2 hours. Sometimes 3. Time I thought he was at meetings. At client sites. Stuck in traffic. I opened my eyes again and stared at the kitchen wall. Our calendar hung there. Color-coded markers, mine in blue, his in black, kids in green. Shared life mapped neatly in squares. Meanwhile he'd carved out secret blocks labeled Craig. My stomach turned. Have you heard them talk? I asked. She hesitated. Then nodded. Anything specific? Her cheeks flushed with shame. They say they miss each other. That they wish more time. Mr. Cooper say he feel alive. Alive. The word detonated inside my chest. Alive with him. Dead with me. Something cold and sharp began forming where the shock had been. Not grief. Not even anger yet. Clarity. How long have you known his name? I asked. Few months, she whispered. He say it once when laughing. I remember. I nodded slowly. Craig. The name finally clicked into place. 3 weeks ago, Ryan's company had hosted a networking mixer downtown. I'd gone because spouses were invited. I'd spent most of the night circulating politely while Ryan talked shop. At one point I'd seen him at the bar with a man, mid-30s, sharp suit, easy confidence. They'd laughed like old friends. Ryan had introduced him casually. This is Craig. Strategic partnerships. They'd shaken hands in front of me. Craig had smiled at me then, warm, practiced, knowing. I remembered thinking he was charming. Now bile burned my throat. They had already been sleeping together that night. While I stood there, smiling, wife-shaped. The kitchen clock ticked loudly. I inhaled slowly through my nose. Does he bring anything? I asked. Sometimes wine, she said. Sometimes gifts. What kind of gifts? Small boxes. Nice ones. He give to Mr. Cooper. My vision tunneled. Gifts. My husband receiving gifts from his lover in my house. I exhaled once, steadying myself. Isabella, I said quietly, you did the right thing telling me. She looked terrified. You not angry? Oh, I said softly, something dangerous unfurling under my ribs, I'm furious. And for the first time since she spoke, the fury found a target. Not her. Not even Craig. Ryan. The man who'd kissed my temple every morning while living an entirely separate life under my roof. I pushed my chair back and stood. What you do? Isabella asked weakly. I looked toward the hallway, toward the bedroom where my marriage had been dismantled piece by piece. I don't know yet, I said. But even as I said it, I felt something shift inside me. Shock was evaporating. In its place, something colder was assembling, thoughts aligning, questions forming, patterns snapping together. Because Ryan hadn't just cheated. He'd engineered a double life. And I suddenly understood something with terrifying clarity. If he could plan betrayal this carefully, then so could I. I didn't confront him that night. That's the first thing people always assume: rage, screaming, shattered plates, the cinematic explosion of a wife scorned. But betrayal that deep doesn't ignite instantly. It freezes. I moved through the rest of the evening like muscle memory. Checked the doors. Set the coffee maker. Loaded the dishwasher. Every motion automatic, detached, like I'd stepped outside my own body and was watching a stranger perform domestic normalcy. Inside, something was reorganizing. Ryan came home at 9:18. I heard the garage door rumble open, the familiar heavy steps across concrete, the soft electronic chirp of the alarm disarming. Sounds that used to signal safety. Now they sounded like intrusion. He walked into the kitchen, loosening his tie. Hey, he said easily. You still up? I turned from the sink. Yeah. He leaned in and brushed a quick kiss against my cheek. I didn't flinch. But every nerve in my skin registered it: his mouth, the scent of his cologne, the casual ownership of a man who believed his world was intact. This mouth had been on someone else hours earlier. I forced a neutral smile. Long day? Brutal, he said, opening the fridge. Client escalation, then traffic from hell. Lie. It slid out of him as smoothly as breath. I watched him drink water straight from the bottle, throat moving, completely unguarded. A man at home in his environment. In control. My husband, the strategist. My husband, the adulterer. You okay? He asked, glancing at me. Just tired, I said. That part, at least, was true. He nodded, satisfied, and headed upstairs. I heard the shower start minutes later. I stood alone in the kitchen, gripping the counter until my fingers hurt. I could storm up there right now. Demand answers. Throw Craig's name like a grenade. But what would that do? He'd deny. Minimize. Twist. Cry. Apologize. Promise. And I'd still know less than he did. No. Ryan had spent months, maybe years, controlling the narrative of our marriage. I wasn't going to react inside his script. I was going to write my own. The realization settled like steel in my spine. I dried my hands, turned off the lights, and went upstairs. He was already in bed, reading on his phone. Shirtless. Relaxed. The same body I'd memorized over a decade. The same chest I'd fallen asleep on during our early years. Now I saw it differently. This body had belonged to someone else for months. He glanced up. You coming? Yeah. I changed in the bathroom, staring at my reflection under the vanity lights. Same face. Same marriage. Same life. Except none of it was what I thought anymore. When I slid into bed, he rolled onto his side, away from me. The familiar valley of untouched mattress between us. The irony almost made me laugh. He'd been physically distant for months while secretly hyper-intimate elsewhere. I'd assumed disconnection. It was simply reallocation. I lay awake long after his breathing deepened. Images kept looping: Craig in our doorway, Craig in our kitchen, Craig in my bed. Ryan's hands on him. Ryan saying he felt alive. Alive. The word pulsed like poison. I turned my head slightly and studied Ryan's sleeping profile in the dim light. He looked peaceful. Innocent even. That's when the anger finally ignited. Not explosive. Focused. You dismantled our marriage in my own home, I thought. You rewrote reality while I trusted you. You made me doubt myself while you lived another life. My pulse slowed. If he could construct deception this thoroughly, then evidence existed. There were patterns. Trails. Decisions. Logistics. Affairs require infrastructure. Time. Space. Money. Communication. Ryan was meticulous in everything. That was his defining trait. Which meant his secrets would be organized too. The thought sharpened into intent. I wasn't going to confront him blindly. I was going to learn everything. The next morning began the same as always: coffee humming, kids noisy, schedules overlapping. Ryan flipped pancakes, kissed Lily's hair, hoisted Jack onto his hip. The perfect father. I watched him with new eyes. Not love. Not even grief. Analysis. When he left for work, I waited exactly 10 minutes, long enough that he wouldn't double back for forgotten keys or laptop. Then I walked into our bedroom. Daylight flooded the space, clean and calm. Bed made tight. Pillows aligned. The neutral sanctuary I'd curated for years. I stood at the threshold for a long moment. This room had held birthdays, sick nights, whispered plans, exhausted laughter. And now strangers' intimacy. My stomach twisted, but I stepped inside. If Craig had been here repeatedly, there would be traces. Not physical ones, Ryan was too controlled for obvious sloppiness. But systems leave marks. Ryan believed in order. Compartments. Structure. So I started where structured people hide things. His workspace. The desk by the window was neat, almost sterile. Laptop centered. Pen aligned with notebook. Drawer closed. Locked. I crouched slowly, studying the small brass keyhole. Ryan had installed this desk himself when we moved in. He'd said he needed secure storage for work documents. At the time, it made sense. Now it screamed secrecy. My heartbeat ticked up. I straightened, already mapping next steps. I didn't have the key. But locks aren't impenetrable. And neither was my husband. As I stood there in the quiet bedroom, the same room where my marriage had been betrayed, I understood something fully for the first time. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the investigator. And Ryan had no idea his double life was about to be audited, didn't touch the locked drawer that first morning. Impulse was the enemy now. If I forced it and left marks, or worse, got caught mid-tampering, the entire advantage vanished. Ryan thrived on control. Surprise was the only territory he didn't own yet. So I closed the desk gently and stepped back, forcing my breathing to slow. Think, I told myself. Not feel. Think. I grabbed my phone and opened notes, thumbs hovering. Ryan, patterns. Access. Opportunities. If I was going to dismantle his secret life, I needed structure. Evidence chains. Timelines. Motive. Method. The same way he'd built the deception in the first place. I started listing everything I already knew. Late meetings increasing over 6 months. Gym nights that stretched past 10. Client dinners twice a month. New passcode on phone last spring. Laptop suddenly password locked at home. Laundry loads he insisted on doing himself. Shower immediately after coming home certain nights. My stomach clenched at that one. God. How many times had he washed Craig off his skin before touching me goodnight? I kept typing. Travel spikes aligned with Craig's conference schedule, check. Mood elevation after work trips. Distance physically plus emotionally at home. The list grew fast. Painfully logical. By the time I stopped, my hands were shaking, not from grief now, but adrenaline. The pieces fit too cleanly. This wasn't spontaneous. It was sustained. Engineered. I locked my phone and slipped it into my pocket as footsteps pounded down the hall. Mom. Where's my blue hoodie? Dryer. I called, voice steady. Domestic life surged back in cereal bowls, missing socks, permission slips. The ordinary chaos that had always defined mornings. Ryan's betrayal existed alongside it now, like a second dimension only I could see. After school drop-off, the house finally emptied. Silence settled. I returned to the bedroom. The desk waited in sunlight, unchanged, patient. I crouched again, studying the lock more closely. Small. Standard. Not high security. Probably included 2 keys originally. Which meant one of 3 things. Ryan carried it. Ryan hid it nearby. Ryan stored it off-site. Option 3 felt unlikely. Ryan preferred immediate access to anything important. Efficiency was his religion. So the key was close. I began with obvious locations: pen cup, drawer organizers, desk underside, behind books. Nothing. Next ring, bedroom surfaces. Nightstands, jewelry dish, watch tray. Still nothing. Ryan wouldn't leave it in plain sight. But he also wouldn't risk losing it. Which meant semi-concealed but accessible. I scanned the room slowly, forcing myself into his mindset. Where would Ryan put something small, critical, and rarely used, but occasionally necessary? My gaze landed on the closet. Of course. Ryan treated his wardrobe like a filing system. Suits grouped by season. Shirts by color gradient. Accessories compartmentalized. It was the only space he curated more obsessively than his workspace. I crossed the room and slid his closet door open. Familiar scents, a cedar, starch, faint cologne, drifted out. Rows of tailored jackets hung like silent witnesses. I started with his dresser section. Sock dividers. Belt rack. Tie drawer. Nothing. Then I noticed the valet tray on the top shelf, his empty pockets drop zone. Wallet, cufflinks, spare change when he changed clothes at night. I dragged the small step stool over and climbed up. Coins. A hotel key card. A folded receipt. A collar stay. And tucked at the back corner, a tiny brass key. My pulse slammed. I picked it up carefully, like it might burn me. Smooth from use. Recently handled, no dust. So he accessed the drawer occasionally. Important. I climbed down, key clenched tight. For a moment I just stood there in the quiet bedroom, staring at the desk across the room. This was a threshold. Once I opened that drawer, denial ended permanently. There would be no unknowing after. I exhaled slowly. You already know enough, I reminded myself. This just confirms. I walked to the desk. Knelt. Inserted the key. It turned with a soft, obedient click. My throat tightened. I slid the drawer open. Inside was order. Predictable, precise order. A leather folio. 2 sealed envelopes. A small external hard drive. A stack of documents clipped together. And a slim black notebook. My heart started pounding so loud I could hear it. Ryan loved analog backups. He distrusted relying solely on digital storage. I'd teased him about it for years, his paranoia about data loss. Now I understood. Redundancy protects secrets too. I picked up the notebook first. It was heavier than it looked, pages thick, edges slightly worn. Used often. Not decorative. I opened to the first page. Dates. Columns. Initials. Locations. My breath caught. It wasn't random notes. It was a log. Methodical. Chronological. Precise. Hotel names. Times. Expenses. Codes. And recurring through months of entries? C. Just C. But I knew exactly who it was. My vision tunneled. Ryan hadn't just had an affair. He'd managed it like a project. Tracked it. Scheduled it. Budgeted it. Documented it. A full operational record of his double life. My hands trembled as I turned another page and saw an entry from 3 weeks ago. Home, 2:10 to 4:35 p.m. The room tilted. That was a Tuesday. I'd been at work. The kids at school. Ryan had taken Craig into our bed in daylight, then logged it like a meeting. Something inside me hardened completely. No more shock. No more heartbreak. Only clarity. I closed the notebook slowly, breath steadying into something cold and controlled. You want organization, Ryan? I thought. You're about to get audited. And this time? I'm the one keeping records. I didn't cry. That was the strangest part. I'd always assumed that if I ever discovered infidelity, real, undeniable betrayal, I'd shatter. Collapse on the floor, sobbing into carpet fibers, lungs aching with grief. Instead, I sat cross-legged on the bedroom rug with my husband's affair ledger in my hands, and felt calm. Not numb. Focused. Like the moment in a storm when wind suddenly drops and everything goes eerily still before the real damage starts. I opened the notebook again. If Ryan had tracked this relationship like a business asset, then the pages contained more than proof of sex. They contained logistics, patterns, dependencies, leverage. I started at the beginning. 8 months ago. First entry, hotel initials, 2 hours, modest expense. No repetition yet. Testing phase. My stomach twisted, but I kept reading. Over weeks, entries multiplied. Locations diversified. Times lengthened. Codes appeared beside certain dates, likely schedule markers or confirmations. Then, 3 months in, the pattern stabilized. Recurring weekday afternoons. Occasional evenings. Monthly overnight. Travel alignment with conferences. And eventually, home. That entry wasn't the first. It was simply the first I'd noticed. I flipped back, scanning fast now, pulse ticking. There. 5 months ago. Home, 1 to 2:30 p.m. Another. Home, 12:45 to 3:10 p.m. Another. Always midday. Always while I worked. Kids at school. Predictable vacancy window. Ryan hadn't just risked bringing Craig into our house. He'd institutionalized it. My throat tightened, but still, no tears. Only the cold expansion of understanding. This wasn't reckless passion. It was operational routine. I set the notebook beside me and opened the leather folio. Inside, printed receipts. Hotel confirmations. Restaurant bills. Rideshare summaries. Expense reports, some reimbursed through work accounts. I inhaled sharply. Corporate fraud. Ryan had partially funded the affair through business travel expenses. Not entirely, but enough that documentation existed across systems he didn't fully control. My mind accelerated. That meant timestamps outside his possession. Third-party verification. Cross-checkable data. I flipped through more pages. Flight stubs. Conference registrations. Spa charges. Wine purchases. Gifts. One receipt made my stomach lurch. Jewelry boutique. $600. Date, my birthday week. Ryan had given me flowers that year. Said work was insane. No gift yet. He'd bought jewelry. For Craig. I closed my eyes briefly, jaw tightening until it hurt. When I opened them again, the last item remained, the external hard drive. Small. Matte black. Labeled simply, our archive. Of course he archived it. I crossed to his laptop on the desk. Still closed, power light dark. Ryan's home laptop had been password locked for months. He'd framed it as new corporate security policy. I'd accepted it without question. Because I trusted him. Because spouses don't assume espionage. I sat in his chair, plugged the drive into the side port, and opened the lid. I sat in his chair, plugged the drive into the side port, and opened the lid. The screen woke instantly. Password field. I stared at it, mind scanning possibilities. Ryan's passwords were always structured, memorable but complex. Dates with modifiers. Layered phrases. Consistent systems. And I knew him better than anyone. Or I had. I tried our anniversary plus symbol. Denied. Kids' birthdays combined. Denied. His company start date. Denied. I exhaled slowly, forcing frustration down. Brute guessing risked lockout. I needed pattern logic. What mattered most to Ryan? Achievement. Control. Milestones. Identity. His MBA graduation date. Denied. Promotion date. Denied. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, replaying his obsessions. What defined him? Then it hit. Not career. Legacy. He loved lineage markers, family history, generational continuity, the idea of building something enduring. He talked about it constantly when the kids were born. I leaned forward and typed. Lily Jack 2013. Enter. The desktop appeared. My stomach dropped. He'd used our children's names and birth year to secure the archive of his affair. Something inside my chest went very, very quiet. I opened the external drive. Folders populated the screen. Travel. Receipts. Photos. Comms. Photos. My hand hovered over the trackpad. This was the point of no return. Visual confirmation erases all defensive illusions permanently. The brain can reinterpret text. It cannot reinterpret images. I clicked. Thumbnails bloomed across the screen. Hotels. Restaurants. Selfies. Arms. Smiles. Ryan's face soft, open, radiant in a way I hadn't seen directed at me in years. And Craig. Younger. Lean. Dark hair falling into his eyes. Laughing into the camera while Ryan kissed his cheek. My lungs forgot how to work. I scrolled. More rooms. More beds. More skin. Bodies intertwined. Sheets tangled. Familiar walls in the background? Our bedroom. Our headboard. Our window light. I slammed the laptop shut, breath shattering out of me in a single broken sound. There it was. Absolute. Undeniable. Documented betrayal inside the space where I slept every night. I sat frozen in Ryan's chair, hands gripping the armrests until my knuckles blanched. For the first time since opening the drawer, tears finally came, not loud, not dramatic. Just silent streams down a face that felt carved from stone. He didn't just cheat, I thought. He curated it. Archived it. Preserved it. My husband had built a museum of our marriage's destruction, and labeled the files with our children's names. The grief lasted maybe 60 seconds. Then it burned away. What replaced it was sharper than rage. Strategy. I wiped my face, opened the laptop again, and stared at the folders with new eyes. Ryan believed documentation protected him. He was wrong. Documentation was power. And now? I had all of it. I didn't look at any more photos that day. I didn't need to. The images I'd already seen were seared into me with surgical precision. Ryan's mouth on Craig's shoulder, Craig's bare back against my sheets, sunlight falling across skin in the exact angle that hit our bed every afternoon. That was enough to end any remaining softness. But the folders weren't about emotion anymore. They were assets. I spent the next hour copying everything. Not haphazardly, systematically. First, I plugged in my own external drive from my office drawer. Neutral gray. Work labeled. Invisible among normal household tech. Then I created mirrored folders: travel, receipts, photos, comms. Drag. Drop. Verify. Repeat. My breathing stayed even, movements precise. No rush. No panic. Just acquisition. When the transfer finished, I ejected both drives, returned Ryan's to the drawer exactly as I'd found it, and locked it again. Key back in the closet tray. Desk alignment restored to millimeter symmetry. If he checked, nothing would appear disturbed. He'd never know his archive had been cloned. I carried my copy to my office, slid it into a file box beneath old tax returns, and closed the lid. Evidence secured. The shift inside me felt complete. Before, wife discovering betrayal. Now, operator holding leverage. The distinction mattered. I opened my notes again and started a new section. Ryan, vulnerabilities. Corporate expense misuse. Documented affair timeline. Use of marital home. Deception during counseling period, if applicable. Financial concealment. Parental stability exposure. I paused at that last line. Kids. My chest tightened for the first time since morning. Lily and Jack still saw Ryan as unshakable, the pancake-flipping dad, the science fair helper, the guy who never missed soccer games. Their reality hadn't fractured yet. Whatever I did next couldn't shatter them unnecessarily. Revenge that damaged them wasn't revenge. It was collateral damage. I added another heading. Objectives. Protect kids' stability. Secure financial advantage. Control narrative. Secure financial advantage. Control narrative. Expose truth, selectively. Retain dignity. I stared at that last one. Dignity. Ryan's affair had stolen intimacy, trust, safety, but I refused to let it steal self-respect too. No screaming confrontations. No messy implosions he could spin as mutual dysfunction. If this marriage ended, and it would end on my terms. Phone buzz. Ryan, running late. Client dinner. Don't wait up. I stared at the message, thumb hovering. The ledger had an entry for tonight. C, 7:30 to 10 p.m. So he was with Craig right now. Probably wine. Probably laughter. Probably that same bright expression I'd seen in the photos, the version of Ryan that had vanished from our marriage years ago. I typed back. Okay. Drive safe. 3 dots appeared almost instantly. Love you. The words landed like ash. I let them sit unanswered. Across the room, the house hummed with evening normalcy, dishwasher cycling, dryer tumbling, kids arguing faintly over homework. Life continuing in parallel to deception. I moved through routine with mechanical competence, dinner, baths, reading time. Kissed foreheads. Tucked blankets. Mom mode intact. But underneath, something else was building. Architecture. By the time the kids slept, my plan had started taking shape, not fully, not finalized, but directional. Information first. Then positioning. Then reveal. Ryan came home at 10:42. I heard his quiet entry, the practiced stealth of someone accustomed to late returns. He checked on the kids. Brushed teeth. Slipped into bed beside me. I kept my breathing slow and even, eyes closed. He smelled faintly of restaurant spice and cologne. And something else. Skin that had been touched. He leaned over, lips brushing my temple. Night, he whispered. My stomach didn't even turn anymore. Inside my mind, I saw folders. Dates. Receipts. Photos. Leverage stacks. He rolled away, asleep within minutes. I opened my eyes in the dark. This man thought he was managing 2 lives successfully. He had no idea one of them had already ended. I turned slightly, studying the outline of his back against the dim room. You logged everything, I thought. Every meeting. Every lie. Every betrayal. Thank you. Because when this detonates, it won't be emotional. It'll be documented. My phone lay on the nightstand. I picked it up silently and opened my calendar. I began marking dates from the ledger. Affair meetings overlaid with family events. School functions. Holidays. Anniversaries. Patterns emerged instantly. He'd seen Craig the morning of Lily's recital. The afternoon before our anniversary dinner. During Jack's flu week when I'd been home caring for him. My jaw tightened. The juxtaposition was brutal and useful. Narrative mattered in divorce. In custody. In reputation. And Ryan's narrative was about to be rewritten in timestamps. I saved the calendar overlay and locked my phone. Beside me, he slept peacefully, unaware that his carefully engineered double life had already collapsed into evidence architecture. I lay awake, not grieving, not raging, planning. Tomorrow, I decided, I'd call an attorney. And Ryan's audit would officially begin. I didn't call the attorney the next morning. I wanted to. The urge pulsed under my skin like caffeine, sharp, energizing, impatient. But reaction wasn't strategy. And once lawyers entered, timelines accelerated whether you were ready or not. I needed more positioning first. So instead, I made pancakes. Ryan stood beside me at the stove, flipping them with the same easy rhythm he used every Saturday. The kids bickered over syrup ratios. Sunlight spilled across the kitchen island. Normal life, intact on the surface. Soccer at 10, he said, sliding a pancake onto Lily's plate. I'll take Jack. You want to come? I looked at him. Really looked. The man who'd kissed Craig in our bed and then catalogued it in a spreadsheet voice was now negotiating orange juice levels with our daughter. The dissonance should have torn me apart. Instead, it clarified something essential. Ryan didn't experience his duplicity as contradiction. He experienced it as compartmentalization. Which meant confronting him emotionally would fail. He'd just moved the discussion into a separate mental box labeled marital conflict, isolated from a fair reality. No. If I was going to collapse his compartments, I needed convergence. Facts stacked so densely they couldn't be sorted away. I've got errands, I said lightly. You guys go. He nodded, satisfied. Cool. Cool. God. 2 hours later, the house emptied again. I cleared dishes, wiped counters, moved slowly through motions while my mind rehearsed. Attorney first? Or financial reconnaissance? Finances. Ryan handled most of our investments, not secretly, just by preference. He enjoyed portfolio management. I'd trusted his transparency. But now I understood something fundamental. Trust is a blindfold willingly worn. I went to the study and logged into our joint banking portal. Accounts populated the screen: checking, savings, brokerage, retirement. Balances normal. Transfers routine. Then I opened credit cards. Scrolling transactions. Groceries. Gas. Utilities. School fees. Then. Boutique hotel charges. Upscale restaurants. Ride shares in districts nowhere near his office. Wine bars. Spa services. Some tagged business. Some personal. Some ambiguous. The ledger entries flashed in my memory. Dates matched. I pulled up statements month by month, cross-referencing with my copied files. Perfect overlap. Ryan had distributed affair spending across accounts to dilute visibility, but the pattern was undeniable once mapped. I exported everything. Statements saved. Charges highlighted. Timeline merged with my calendar overlay. Financial infidelity layered over sexual infidelity. Courts cared about money. I leaned back in the chair, a slow, controlled satisfaction unfurling in my chest. He thought he'd been careful. He'd been consistent. And consistency exposes. Next, insurance policies. Life. Health. Home. Beneficiaries unchanged. Me primary. Kids contingent. The irony almost made me laugh. He'd planned a parallel romantic life without updating the legal architecture of his actual one. Which meant leverage again. I created another file. Legal exposure, Ryan. Marital asset misuse. Expense fraud, corporate. Documented infidelity. Home use violation. Financial concealment patterns. I stared at the list. This wasn't vengeance yet. This was perimeter control. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. For a split second, my pulse jumped, irrational fear Ryan somehow knew. I answered. Hello? Hi, is this Mrs. Carter? Female voice. Professional. Neutral. Yes. This is Amanda from Brookfield Orthodontics. We're confirming Lily's consult Monday at 3:30. Right, I said, exhaling silently. Yes, we'll be there. Great. See you then. Call ended. I set the phone down slowly. Even mundane scheduling now carried weight. Every future appointment, school year, medical decision, things that once assumed marital continuity, were about to shift. Divorce wasn't just emotional rupture. It was logistical earthquake. I opened a new note. Post-separation planning. Housing options. School continuity. Custody structure. Insurance transitions. Account separation. Narrative to kids. The last line stopped me. How do you tell children their father dismantled the family for another man? The cruelty wasn't his sexuality. It was deception. I closed my eyes briefly. One thing at a time. Attorney next, I decided. Not to file. To understand terrain. I searched discreetly, family law firms nearby. Reviews. Specialties. Discretion reputation. One name surfaced repeatedly, Elena Vargas, high conflict asset divorce, strategic negotiation. I hovered over the contact button. This click moved everything from internal war to external action. I pressed it. Form opened. Name. Phone. Email. Brief description. I typed. Seeking consultation regarding marital dissolution involving documented infidelity and financial irregularities. Need confidential strategic guidance before disclosure. I read it once. Accurate. Controlled. Bloodless. Exactly how this needed to begin. I submitted. Confirmation message appeared. Our office will contact you within 1 business day. I stared at the screen, heart steady. There. The first irreversible step. Across the quiet house, sunlight drifted over family photos, beach trips, birthdays, smiling versions of us frozen in time before fracture. I looked at Ryan's face in one frame, arm around my shoulders, kids between us. You thought you were running 2 lives, I thought. You weren't. You were building evidence. And now? I had counsel coming. Elena Vargas's office called the next morning at 9:12. I was at work, staring at a spreadsheet that might as well have been static. Numbers blurred. My brain had been running dual tracks for days now, public competence, private war. Mrs. Carter? This is Michelle from Vargas Family Law. Ms. Vargas reviewed your intake. She can see you Thursday at 4:30. In person or secure video. My pulse steadied. In person, I said. Of course. Everything you share is confidential. If you have documents, bring copies. I do. We'll see you Thursday. Call ended. I sat back slowly, absorbing the reality. Someone else now knew, or would soon know, the truth of my marriage. Not as gossip. Not as confession. As case material. I opened my calendar and blocked Thursday, client review. Neutral. Unremarkable. Then I began preparing. If Ryan had taught me anything through this nightmare, it was the power of documentation. Elena would need clarity, not emotion. Evidence, not shock. So I built a dossier. Timeline first, affair inception to present. Ledger entries mapped against financial charges, travel logs, family events. Clean columns. Dates verified. Timeline first, affair inception to present. Ledger entries mapped against financial charges, travel logs, family events. Clean columns. Dates verified. Next, financial exposure. Statements with highlights. Expense categories. Corporate overlaps flagged. Then, marital home violations. Specific dates Craig present in residence, corroborated by Ryan's own records and photos metadata timestamps. I hesitated over the photo section. Images were powerful, but volatile. I selected only 3, hotel selfie, restaurant receipt pairing, and one bedroom shot where the headboard was unmistakable. Enough to establish. Not enough to traumatize unnecessarily. I labeled the folder, Carter, Preliminary Evidence. Neutral. Clinical. By lunch, the file felt solidly coherent, undeniable, controlled. The control mattered most. Because inside, something else had started surfacing, anticipation. Not revenge exactly. Consequence. For days I'd been alone with knowledge, holding the entire truth while Ryan moved through life untouched. The imbalance was suffocating. Thursday would shift that. Someone else would see him clearly. That thought carried a quiet, dangerous satisfaction. That evening, Ryan grilled in the backyard while the kids chased each other through sprinklers. Summer air. Charred smoke. Laughter. He caught my eye through the patio door. Smiled. That easy, practiced warmth. I smiled back. The performance now went both directions. Hey, he said later, handing me a plate. You seem lighter lately. I almost laughed. Just busy, I said. Good busy? Yeah. It wasn't a lie. Strategic engagement has its own energy. He nodded, satisfied, and turned back to the grill. I watched him, shoulders relaxed, movements confident, a man fully secure in his constructed world. You really don't know, I thought. Thursday arrived faster than expected. I told Ryan I had a late meeting downtown. He barely reacted, just a distracted okay, drive safe. His phone buzzed mid-sentence. He checked it instantly. Craig, probably. The irony nearly choked me. I drove to Elena Vargas's office in a part of the city built for discretion, glass buildings, private parking, muted signage. The kind of place reputations dissolved quietly. Reception was calm, minimalist. Soft lighting. Neutral art. A woman in her 40s stepped out after 2 minutes, dark hair, composed posture, eyes that missed nothing. Mrs. Carter? I'm Elena. We shook hands. Her grip was firm. Grounding. Inside her office, I sat across from her desk and placed the folder between us. I've discovered my husband is having a long-term affair, I said evenly. I have documentation. I need to understand my legal position before confronting him. She nodded once. No shock. No pity. Just attention. Tell me what you have. I slid the folder forward. She opened it. Silence filled the room as she read page after page, eyes moving fast but precise. Occasionally she circled something lightly in pencil. Once she exhaled through her nose. After 15 minutes, she closed it. Well, she said calmly, your husband is extremely organized. I held her gaze. Yes. And extremely exposed. Something inside me settled deeper. Talk to me, I said. She folded her hands. You have clear documentation of infidelity, marital asset misuse, and use of the marital residence for the affair. Depending on jurisdictional specifics, this materially strengthens your position in asset division and potentially custody leverage if lifestyle stability arguments arise. Ryan's compartments were collapsing already. And the financials? I asked. Significant. Especially if corporate reimbursements overlap personal conduct. That introduces reputational risk he'll want contained. I nodded slowly. So, she continued, the question becomes strategy. Do you want rapid dissolution? Negotiated settlement? Or reputational pressure to maximize concessions? There it was. The lever. I heard my own voice, steady and clear. I want him to understand exactly what he's done. And I want the outcome to reflect it. Elena studied me for a long second, not judging, just measuring resolve. Then she nodded. Good, she said. Because with this level of documentation, you control the narrative. The words landed like steel locking into place. For the first time since opening that drawer, I wasn't alone with the truth. It had entered the legal world. And Ryan's audit had officially begun. Elena didn't tell me what to do. That was the first thing I noticed and respected. Some lawyers push escalation immediately, file now, freeze accounts, shock the spouse into panic. But Elena approached this like chess, not demolition. You have 3 primary advantages, she said, sliding my folder back toward me. Information, documentation, and timing. The moment you confront, you lose the last one. Timing. Control of when Ryan's worlds collided. So I shouldn't tell him yet, I said. Not until you've positioned fully. Right now, he believes his double life is undiscovered. That keeps his behavior predictable. Predictability is leverage. The word again. Leverage. I absorbed that quietly. What positioning remains? I asked. Financial separation groundwork, personal asset awareness, and, if applicable, independent liquidity. When separation becomes known, accounts often move quickly. Ryan would never think I'd pre-secured finances. Because Ryan thought I trusted him. I nodded slowly. Okay. She leaned back slightly. Second, narrative framing. Affairs are common. But documented, structured deception involving marital residence and funds, that's different. It affects settlement psychology. I understood. This wasn't just about legal rights. It was about pressure points Ryan cared about, reputation, control, image. Elena tapped the photo tab lightly. He appears emotionally invested. My throat tightened for half a second. Yes. That matters. People protecting an affair often concede more to preserve it, or to prevent exposure of it. Exposure. The word hung between us. Who knows? She asked. No one. Good. Keep it that way for now. I exhaled slowly. This secrecy phase had been isolating, but it was also strategic capital. We spent another 40 minutes mapping options. Mediated settlement versus adversarial filing, custody frameworks, asset division projections. Elena spoke in calm probabilities, not promises. By the end, my future had shifted from fog to terrain. There would be a path out. On my terms. When I left her office, dusk had settled, city lights flickering on, traffic humming. I sat in my car for a moment, hands on the wheel, feeling something unfamiliar. Stability. Not marital stability, that was gone. Personal stability. Because now the truth existed outside my head and Ryan's hidden files. It lived in legal context. Strategy. Plan. My phone buzzed. Ryan, you heading home? I stared at the screen. He had no idea where I'd been. No idea that a divorce attorney now held copies of his affair documentation. No idea his timeline had started ticking. Yes, I typed. On my way. 3 dots. Miss you. I almost admired the audacity. I didn't respond. At home, the kids were finishing homework at the kitchen island. Ryan leaned against the counter, reading emails on his phone. He looked up when I entered. Hey. Hey. His gaze lingered a second longer than usual, searching, maybe. He'd noticed my distance the past week. Not the cause, but the shift. You okay? He asked quietly. Yes. The truth of that surprised me. I was okay. Hurt, yes. Betrayed beyond repair, absolutely. But no longer destabilized. No longer reactive. Because I held reality now. Dinner was simple, leftovers, casual chatter, Jack describing a playground argument in forensic detail. Ryan laughed, attentive father mode intact. I watched him across the table. The man who'd built spreadsheets for his affair. The man who'd archived our marriage's destruction under our children's names. Soon, he would learn something fundamental. Systems fail when unseen variables enter. After the kids slept, he joined me on the couch. Routine intimacy, shared space, TV murmuring. His arm draped along the back cushion behind me. Once, that proximity had felt like home. Now it felt like staging. You've been distant, he said finally. There it was. Early detection. Ryan always monitored relational climate. He sensed drift quickly, one of the traits that made his deception so effective. I kept my eyes on the screen. Work's heavy. He studied me. I could feel it. Anything else? He asked. This was the moment many spouses break, emotion flooding, accusations spilling uncontrolled. But Elena's voice echoed, the moment you confront, you lose timing. I shook my head lightly. Just tired. He accepted that, for now. But a hairline crack had appeared. Good. Let him feel uncertainty. Let him wonder which compartment was leaking. Because soon, all of them would. Later in bed, he reached for me, habitual, absent-minded intimacy. His hand resting on my hip. I froze for half a second. Then gently moved it away. He noticed. Of course he did. You okay? He murmured. Yeah. Just, not tonight. A pause. Okay, he said softly. He rolled over. I lay awake in the dark, pulse steady. Boundary 1 established. Physical withdrawal without explanation. Signal without reveal. Psychological terrain shifting under him. I stared at the ceiling, mind already moving ahead, financial positioning Elena advised, account separation steps, documentation backups. This wasn't explosion. It was controlled collapse. Ryan's audit was entering phase 2. And he still had no idea the clock had started, opened a new bank account the next morning. Not dramatically. Not in secret agent disguise. Just during my lunch break, at a branch 3 blocks from my office that Ryan never used. Different bank entirely, no shared ecosystem, no automatic linking suggestions, no accidental visibility. The banker asked routine questions. Direct deposit? Debit card? Online access? Yes, I said to all of it, voice calm. Initial deposit, modest. Enough to activate. Not enough to flag. As I signed the final form, something inside me shifted again, not anger this time, not even strategy. Autonomy. For years, Ryan and I had functioned as a financial unit. Shared goals. Shared plans. Shared assumptions of permanence. Opening an account without him would once have felt like betrayal. Now it felt like oxygen. By the time I returned to work, my phone held a new banking app. My name only. My control only. Phase 2 underway. That evening, I began quiet reallocation, not theft, not concealment. just awareness and positioning. Elena had been precise: document everything, move nothing aggressively, but ensure personal liquidity exists. So I transferred small, defensible amounts from joint discretionary funds, categories already used for individual expenses, clothing, personal care, work costs. Nothing unusual. Nothing traceable as panic. But now those funds accumulated under my name alone. Ryan would never notice. Because Ryan trusted the system he believed he controlled. Over the next week, I continued. Statements downloaded monthly. Investment summaries copied. Insurance details archived. Password recovery options updated quietly where permitted, ensuring I retained access even if he later changed credentials. This wasn't sabotage. It was continuity insurance. At home, the atmosphere shifted in subtle gradients. Ryan watched me more. Not suspicious exactly, attuned. He sensed relational drift like barometric pressure. A comment here: you seem busy lately. A question there: everything good at work? I answered lightly. Truth adjacent. Non-specific. He accepted it, because the alternative required confronting something he believed hidden. The compartment held. For now. One night, he came home late, later than usual. 11:30. I was reading in bed when he entered, loosening his tie, movements slightly off rhythm. Long day, he said. He stood there a second too long. Then, we're okay, right? The question landed between us. Not suspicion. Fear. Hairline fracture widening. I looked up slowly. Met his eyes. We're fine, I said. The lie was almost kind. He exhaled, tension easing from his shoulders. Good. But I saw it clearly now, the flicker beneath, anxiety that something unnamed was shifting beyond his mapping. Good. Let uncertainty grow. 2 days later, I executed the next step Elena suggested: personal document retrieval. Birth certificates. Marriage license. Social security cards. Passports. Tax returns. All stored in the household safe Ryan had installed years ago: shared code, mutual trust. I opened it mid-afternoon while the house was empty. Metal door swung wide. Files neatly labeled in his precise handwriting. I removed originals, scanned them in my office, and replaced them exactly. Except the passports. Those I left in my work bag. Not disappearance, just access. Divorce logistics often turn on paperwork timing. I would not scramble later while he controlled documents. As I closed the safe, a realization settled fully. I was dismantling dependency. Not explosively. Systematically. That night, Ryan cooked pasta. Kids laughed. Music played low. Domestic normalcy continued like an undisturbed surface over tectonic plates shifting beneath. Halfway through dinner, his phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at it. And for the first time since I discovered everything. He didn't pick it up immediately. His eyes flicked to me first. Microsecond. But I saw it. Awareness. Risk assessment. Then he turned the screen face down. My pulse didn't spike. My stomach didn't twist. Because I already knew. But now. He was wondering if I did. Progress. Later, as we cleaned up together, he said casually, I've got a conference next month. Chicago. The ledger flashed in my mind, recurring travel city. Okay, I said. You mind if I extend a day? Some networking stuff. Craig lived in Chicago. Of course. Sure, I said, rinsing dishes. Whatever you need. He studied me again. Searching for friction. Jealousy. Resistance. None. Because the battlefield had moved where he couldn't see it. Upstairs that night, he reached for me again, more tentative this time. Testing connection. I let his hand rest briefly. Then shifted away. Just tired, I murmured. Another small withdrawal. Another signal without explanation. He lay awake longer than usual. I could feel it, his stillness, his listening. Calculating variables. The compartments were no longer sealed. Somewhere in his mind, a possibility had begun forming, that his hidden life might not be fully hidden anymore. He didn't know how much. He didn't know when. But doubt had entered. And doubt corrodes control. In the darkness, I watched the ceiling and felt the architecture of his certainty continuing to crack, slow, silent, inevitable. Phase 2 nearing completion. Soon. He would learn the audit was real. The first time Ryan realized something was truly wrong, it wasn't during an argument. It was during silence. Sunday morning. Kitchen sunlight. Coffee brewing. Kids still asleep. I stood at the counter scrolling my phone, not actually reading, just occupying space. Ryan leaned against the island across from me, watching. Not casually. Studying. You feel far away, he said finally. There it was, clearer than before. No light tone. No joke cushion. Direct. I took a slow sip of coffee. Do I? Yes. We held eye contact. A week ago, I might have deflected more gently. Preserved illusion. But Elena had been right, controlled destabilization mattered. Let uncertainty grow without disclosure. So I didn't reassure him fully. Maybe I'm just tired, I said. Not denial. Not confirmation. Ambiguity. Ryan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. What's going on? He asked. Inside, I felt something settle. This was the shift. He sensed loss of control. And that terrified him more than exposure ever could. Work's intense, I said. Life's busy. He searched my face like it contained hidden text. Are you unhappy? He asked quietly. The question echoed in the kitchen. Once, I would have rushed to soothe him. Assure him. Protect his emotional comfort. Now I let the silence stretch. Sometimes, I said. Truth. But not the truth he feared. His shoulders stiffened. With us? I set my cup down carefully. This was the edge Elena described, the pre-confrontation tremor when the unfaithful partner senses atmospheric change but lacks data. I met his eyes. Calm. Steady. We've been distant a long time, I said. His breath caught. Because that was also true. But he heard accusation inside it. We've both been busy, he said quickly. Defensive systems activating. Kids, work. I know, I said softly. No anger. No blame. Just acknowledgement. Which unsettled him more. Ryan understood conflict. He did not understand quiet disengagement. The kids thundered downstairs then, shattering the moment. Syrup demands. Cartoon negotiations. Chaos resumed. But something fundamental had shifted. He watched me differently all morning. Like a man sensing structural damage beneath familiar flooring. Good. That afternoon, while he took Jack to a birthday party, I executed the next step Elena and I had planned, housing reconnaissance. Not moving out. Not yet. But understanding options. I drove through neighborhoods within school boundaries. Rental signs. Townhome complexes. Commute times. Quiet streets where children still biked in loops. I parked outside one listing, a modest 3-bedroom with a small yard. Nothing luxurious. But stable. Safe. Possible. I sat in the car, engine idling, and imagined it, furniture rearranged, Kids' rooms reassembled, new routines forming without Ryan's presence. The image hurt. But it didn't break me. Because now the loss wasn't hypothetical. It was already real. I drove home before Ryan returned, carrying brochures tucked inside my work folder. Data, not decision. That night, he initiated conversation again, bedroom lights dim, tension palpable. "Can we talk?" he asked. Yes. He sat on the edge of the bed, facing me. Hands clasped. "We've felt off," he said. "For a while." I watched him carefully. This was not confession. This was preemptive framing. If he sensed impending discovery, he'd try to recast distance as mutual drift, shared responsibility. Standard affair defense pattern. "I've noticed," I said. Relief flickered across his face. Shared problem. Safer terrain. "I don't want us to lose what we have," he said. The irony was almost unbearable. But I held steady. "Neither do I," I said. Another truth. Just not the one he assumed. He reached for my hand. I let him hold it. "Connection simulation. Maybe we should reconnect," he said. "Date nights. Time away. Just us. Repair attempt I before exposure." I felt the final internal shift then. The moment victimhood fully dissolved. Because I saw clearly. He was trying to save the marriage he had already destroyed. Without acknowledging the destruction. I squeezed his hand lightly. "That might be good," I said. Hope flared in his eyes. And guilt. There it was. Confirmation. He suspected something, but not the extent. Good. Very good. He leaned forward and kissed my forehead. "We'll fix this." I almost pitied him. Because the audit was complete. He just didn't know the results yet. After he slept, I lay awake, reviewing everything: finances positioned, documents secured, housing scoped, attorney engaged, evidence archived. Phase 2 finished. Only one step remained. Disclosure. Not explosion. Not accusation. Presentation. Ryan believed he managed narratives through organization. Soon, he would face a narrative organized better than his own. In the dark, I stared at the ceiling and felt something calm and absolute settle through me. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow the compartments collapse. I chose Tuesday. Not symbolic. Not dramatic. Just practical: kids at school, work calendars light, emotional bandwidth available for fallout. Ryan left at 8:05, coffee in hand, tie slightly crooked the way it always was when he rushed. He kissed my cheek at the door. "Love you," he said. I held his gaze. "You too." The last time I would ever say it, believing anything remained between us. By 9 o'clock, the house was silent. I didn't pace. Didn't rehearse speeches. Everything I needed sat already assembled: weeks of documentation, strategy, positioning. Words would be minimal. This wasn't confrontation. It was audit presentation. I set the dining table carefully. Not theatrically, just deliberately. Folder centered. 3 copies inside: mine, his, Elena's template set. Water glasses. Neutral space. Daylight. When he texted at 11:12, meeting cancelled. Heading home early, I felt a strange, clean alignment. Timing had come to me. Perfect. I replied, "Okay. I'm home." No emojis. No warmth. Just fact. He arrived at 11:34. I heard the garage, the door, his steps. He entered the kitchen, surprise flickering when he saw me sitting at the table instead of working upstairs. "Hey," he said. "Everything okay?" "Yes," I said. "Can you sit for a minute?" Something in my tone stopped him instantly. The air changed. He pulled out the chair across from me slowly. What's going on? I slid the folder toward him. I need you to look at this, I said. His eyes dropped to the tab. Carter, marital review. Confusion first. Then unease. He opened it. Silence fell thick and heavy as he read. Timeline pages first. Dates. Locations. Cross-references. His breathing changed. Next, financial summaries. Highlighted charges. Matching ledger entries. Color drained from his face. Then photos. He stopped. Stared. Hands trembling now. I watched him, not with anger, not with triumph. Just stillness. Witnessing the collapse of constructed reality. He flipped back pages. Forward again. As if hoping misinterpretation might appear. It didn't. Because everything came from his own records. After several minutes, he looked up. Eyes wide. Shocked. Cornered. How? His voice cracked. How did you? I found your drawer, I said calmly. The words landed like a verdict. Understanding detonated behind his eyes. The notebook. The drive. The archive. His systems. Used against him. Oh my God, he whispered. Silence stretched. I let it. Because this moment, this realization, was the fulcrum of everything. No denial possible. No gaslighting space. No narrative control left. You've been having an affair with Craig for at least 8 months, I said evenly. Documented extensively. Including in our home. He flinched like struck. Tears flooded instantly. Real ones. Not strategic yet, shock tears. He swallowed hard. I can explain. You don't need to, I said. And that broke him more. Because explanation was his last defense. Without it, only truth remained. I'm so sorry, he said, voice collapsing. I never meant. You meant it every time, I said quietly. You scheduled it. His shoulders shook. I was going to tell you, he whispered. I held his gaze. No, you weren't. Truth landed between us, final and clean. He covered his face. I didn't want to lose you. The irony might have been laughable if it weren't so devastating. You already did, I said. The room went utterly still. Minutes passed in fractured quiet. His breathing ragged. My own steady. Finally, he whispered, What happens now? There it was. The question of consequence. I slid the final page toward him. Separation framework. Preliminary custody structure. Asset division proposal. Attorney contact header. I've retained counsel, I said. This is an initial settlement outline. We can proceed collaboratively or litigate. Your choice. He stared at the page like it was written in fire. You're divorcing me, he said hollowly. Yes. The word held no heat. Just fact. He shook his head weakly. We can fix this. Therapy? You built a second relationship inside our marriage, I said softly. You archived it. Funded it. Brought it into our bed. There's nothing left to fix. Tears streamed down his face unchecked now. I love you, he said. The last, desperate reach. I felt something inside me finally release. Not anger. Grief. But clean grief. I know, I said. And for the first time since opening that drawer. I meant it as past tense. He collapsed forward, sobbing into his hands, the architect of control undone by his own documentation. I sat across from him, calm and immovable. The audit was complete. And Ryan's double life had officially ended. The house felt different the moment the word divorce entered it. Not louder. Not emptier. Just rearranged, like gravity had shifted slightly and everything now rested at unfamiliar angles. Ryan didn't go to work that afternoon. He sat at the dining table long after I'd finished speaking, hands limp between his knees, eyes red and unfocused. The folder lay open in front of him, pages of his own life turned into evidence. Every so often he'd whisper something, half sentences dissolving in air. I didn't think. I never meant. How did I? But intention was irrelevant now. Documentation had replaced it. I gave him time. Not out of mercy, out of completion. He needed to absorb fully that the secret structure he'd built for months had collapsed in a single morning. Around 2:30, he finally spoke clearly. Do the kids know? No. Panic flickered. Please, don't tell them like this. They'll hear the truth in an age-appropriate way, I said. From both of us. Calmly. His shoulders sagged with fragile relief. Even now, his first fear was losing their perception. I understood that. Because I'd protected it too, until he made that impossible. He wiped his face, staring at the settlement outline again. You've planned everything. Yes. A long silence. Then, barely audible, is there anything I can do? There it was, the bargaining phase stripped of denial. Not did this happen, not why. Only consequence management. I looked at him, the man I'd loved for over a decade. The father of my children. The stranger who'd brought another life into ours and logged it like inventory. There was, I said quietly. Before. He flinched, grief breaking across his face again. I know, he whispered. And for the first time since discovery. I believed him. Not about regret undoing harm. Nothing could. But about understanding. He finally saw the scale. We sat in the quiet for several more minutes. Then I stood. I'm picking the kids up at 3, I said. We'll talk about next steps tonight. He nodded weakly. I left him there, amid his folders, his consequences, his unraveling certainty. Outside, afternoon sunlight felt almost surreal. Normal world continuing while mine had permanently shifted. At school pickup, Lily ran into my arms, chattering about art class. Jack waved a spelling test triumphantly. Their faces, open, trusting, whole, tightened something deep in my chest. This was why I'd done it the way I had. No screaming. No chaos. No explosive confrontation shattering their safety overnight. Just truth, contained until it could be delivered responsibly. That evening, Ryan and I sat together on the couch after dinner. Kids upstairs. The hardest conversation ahead. How do we say this? He asked hoarsely. Simply, I said. Mom and Dad are separating. We both love you. This isn't your fault. He nodded, swallowing. And Craig? He asked quietly. We don't discuss details, I said. That's adult information. Relief again. Some things I still protected for them, not him. We called the kids down. They sensed tension immediately, children always do. Lily climbed beside me. Jack leaned against Ryan. We need to talk, I said gently. The words unfolded exactly as planned. Clear. Calm. Contained. Tears, confusion, questions, why? Where will we live? Will we still see you? We answered together. United front, even in fracture. By bedtime, they were raw but held, arms wrapped tight, reassurances repeated. Love, stability, continuity emphasized over and over. After they slept, the house settled into a fragile new quiet. Ryan stood in the hallway outside their rooms for a long time, staring at the doors. Grief radiated off him in waves. I felt it. But it no longer owned me. Later, in our bedroom, the last night we'd share it, I packed a small overnight bag. Not exile. Transition. I'd stay with a friend temporarily while logistics finalized. Ryan watched from the doorway, hollow-eyed. I never thought, he said. I know, I replied. That was the tragedy. He believed compartmentalization would preserve everything indefinitely. He'd been wrong. I zipped the bag and paused, looking around the room that had held our entire adult life, love, births, sickness, laughter, betrayal. It was just a room again now. I'll be back tomorrow for more things, I said. He nodded. At the door, he spoke once more. I am sorry, he said. No defense. No explanation. Just truth. I met his eyes. I know, I said. And meant that, too. Outside, night air wrapped cool around me. The world felt vast in a way it hadn't in years, terrifying and free at once. My marriage was over. My family was changed. My future unwritten. But something essential had survived intact. Me. I walked to my car carrying only a small bag, and the weight of a decade ended. Behind me, the house held echoes of what we'd been. Ahead, the road opened, uncertain, painful, real. Ryan's double life had ended in collapse. Mine was beginning again in truth. And for the first time since opening that drawer, I felt entirely, fiercely alive.